You are now tuned in to higher frequencies. We do this frequently. Turn your radio station to E3 for that decency. Listen to great music and the latest movement. Safe listening for anyone that's tuned in. Who you waking up to? Anna Deshawn, Q Crew and friends. It's that real talk. Online radio with the spins. You caught up in traffic, frustrated. Just check in with E3 to shift your vibrations and get elevated. That's queer radio done right. Choose to be yourself. That's the only way to live life, and that's how it's done here. Just know y'all tuned in to the greatest. Ain't no competition. We ain't worried about the other stations. Check.
What's good people? You know this is your girl Anna Deshawn right here on Wake Up with Anna and Friends, only on E3 Radio, your number one stop for queer radio done right. I'm so happy to have our friend Reyna Ortiz with us today on the show. What's going on, Reyna?
What's up? Thanks for having me. Thank you so much for taking the time to invite me. I'm really excited.
Hey, I'm so excited you're here. I'm so excited to talk about the work you're doing, been doing for a long time in the community here in Chicago. Because I think more people need to know about not only what you do, but where you do it. And also this book you got that I didn't even know about. So we're about to clear it all up for the people today.
Got
Done. So let's start with the work you've been doing. So you work at Taskforce here in Chicago on the Westside. Yeah?
Yeah.
And I don't think a lot of people know that one, Taskforce exists. If you knew Taskforce exists, maybe you haven't been connected to the work in such a way, because I think folks, we all know that there's a lack of resources on the West Side. So can you just tell the people a little bit about the work that Taskforce does?
Sure. So I was brought into Taskforce. This August will be 7 years.
Woo!
7 years I've been in that space. So Taskforce Prevention was started by African American people, Black LGBT people. I was brought in by, the famous Dr. Margot Bell, who was an African American doctor who brought me in. One, I think the connection that we had really quickly was so important. I used to, bring girls in. I was a sex worker for 20 years and I was a madam for 12 years. And I would bring the girls in to the county to get tested and other resources. And that's kind of how I met Dr. Bell through the work. And then, she brought me into Taskforce and she said, Reyna Ortiz, I just want to let you know, you're a lot smarter than you think you are. You just see yourself as a sex worker, but you're really a social service worker. And then that was it. She's like, you want a job? And I'm like, of course. And then I started on the process of, taking all these courses, and she got me every training that was around. She enrolled me in, and I started doing, and then I became an HIV a tester. So what we do at Taskforce, one, the space within itself is a resource. It's on the west side of Chicago. It's still Row and Madison. We're open Mondays, Tuesdays, and Wednesdays. Their youth call it the Vogue School. So the Vogue School, is open from 5 to 9 on Mondays and Wednesdays. And when I first stepped into the Vogue School, there was literally maybe 60 to 80 youth in that space on a hot summer day in August.
That's just so many.
Oh my God. Yeah. It was. I had went to maybe a ball, maybe once, but I've been, trans-identified and part of community openly since I was 14 years old in 1994, but I wasn't really in the ballroom scene, Yeah. But I mean, it was like, it's a dance school. It's a dance school on the west side of Chicago. So
that so many people don't know about, right? And Reyna, you just dropped so much right there. Okay, first off, you a madam running these women around, doing your thing, but also taking them in to get tested, right? Like, and caring about them. And for Dr. Bell, and for everybody that doesn't know Dr. Bell, I don't know what you need to do. Just Google or something, okay? She's an amazing human. She's a phenomenal human being, and always been such an advocate in the community. And so for her to bring you in and be like, how about doing this? And I think that's what it's about. Like, that for me is what community looks like, because you've been doing community, right? And helping women survive doing sex work. And I think we can have a whole nother show about that. Okay. And doing that. And then she was like, how about you do this social service work and help even more people than the people that you were helping to survive? And then I know Dr. Bell was real instrumental in starting the Vogue School, and 60 to 80 young people on the Westside gathered together. I mean, that's powerful stuff.
Oh my God, mind blowing, to be honest. And then, that was, the Vogue School is, it's the space, but then also, it's connected to a multitude of resources, and in a way that is simplistic. You don't have to go through large levels of bureaucracy to navigate through these resources, because a lot of people get lost in that system, and we don't have the patience or the time, so we kind of made these resources just so smooth. You need something, so we obviously is HIV prevention first and foremost, because now we know in 2021 who was being impacted the most by HIV. It's Black and brown, trans, and gay men and boys. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's where we are now in 2021, where the high levels of HIV is impacting Black and brown, trans, and gay boys and gay men. So that's kind of our main focus, is prevention. But we don't make it all about prevention. You don't have to get tested to come into the school. You don't have to do that stuff. You just come and you enjoy yourself. But we want you to know that when you're ready to get tested, or if you're ready to have these conversations about HIV prevention, we are here.
Yes.
It's not about it. Some places you got to get tested and all this stuff, and it just becomes such a hindrance to community. The Vogue School is what's important, and everything else is secondary.
I think that's a beautiful point that you make, right? Because we know how this works. It's all a part of the larger systematic game of things, right? People get money for HIV prevention and testing, and so they're trying to hit their numbers, even though they're inviting you into the space. What you all are saying is, yeah, we got these numbers, whatever, but we want you to be here, have a space for you first, and know that we are here to support you, right? So I love that approach, because I feel like that approach invites people in a very genuine way, while still being probably more effective, because you've gained these young people's trust, and that you've created a space that was for them.
Yeah, and that's all what it's about. It's about building rapport and being consistent and being present, and then also knowing that what we talk about stays within this system, in this little wall, in this space, because trust, and we're dealing with populations of youth, especially, that haven't been able to build deep trust with people. When you think about Black and brown LGBT youth, especially trans youth, we're dealing with large systems where our families really honestly don't understand these gender, or the evolution of our gender, and they throw us to the streets, or they throw the kids out, or they're not giving them the support. So when that happens to a youth who's trying to entrust someone that they're supposed to entrust with their identity, and then the family's like, oh hell no, this is terrible, it breaks that trust. And a lot of youth carry that with them in every aspect of their lives. So for us, it's really important to establish a deep trust and understanding that we are really here to be of assistance to you, and all the things that you need, so that's super important to us.
It's super important, because people are broken. People, when your family turns their backs on you, you can become a broken person. I find that family and the church, right, tend to be the two first places that people gain community as young people. And when you have nowhere to go and you are out here on the street, you got to survive. Folks want to focus on all these other issues, but survival, day to day, what am I going to eat for lunch? Not what I'm eating next week, making plans for dinner, what am I going to eat for breakfast and lunch and dinner? When I'm thinking about that, I'm not thinking about your other, privileged issues. I've got other concerns. And when you have a space where you can come in and then you can begin to build trust again, it's very fragile, and it's a precious thing that you got to hold sacred. So it sounds like you all have been doing that in an amazing way at Taskforce.
Yeah, 7 years this August. I love it. I keep saying, 7 years, and I love it like the first day that I walked through the door. I love it. It's my deep connection to community, and my job, and always unknowingly or knowingly, was to build. It's to build. It's to build community. It's to build trust. It's to build love. It's to build a lot of things, you know. So to me, it's my gateway to the community work that I love so much.
And I don't want you to go. I want to know, how can people support that work? Like, people who are listening, what's your call to action to them?
Well, one, learn about Taskforce. You know, we've been around for, you know, years and years and years and decades, honestly. You know,
I'm about to say like 20 plus years, right?
Yeah, honestly, you know, because it's really truly when the curtain is open and you pull the curtain back, I really feel that this is how the city, the state, the country feels about Black and brown LGBT youth. You know, there's no front end, there's no nothing. It's the real business. And I think people need to understand that, because they think about, they see, and you know, but in real life, you know, we are still battling, you know, deep systematic issues of poverty and all these things, you know. And when you get to Taskforce, there's no front end. We don't front. It's the real business, you know. So they got to know the space, you know, and then also, you know, donate to the space. Honestly, donate your time, donate your used clothes, donate, you know, hygiene items, and donate the coin. You know, people get so wrapped up in all this other stuff. At the end of the day, write Chris Baltazar a check to Taskforce. That's it. Everybody gets so wrapped up in the bureaucracy because they really don't want to do it. If someone really wants to do something, they're going to do it and not make excuses of like, oh, you have to, you know, all this information. That's the white man stuff. You know, if you want to help, you write you a check and you give it to Chris Baltazar, and then you know for sure that it's going to the youth. And I think that's what people need to understand. Is like, I've been saying this, it takes a village.
Yes.
Village. It's an African proverb. It takes a village to raise a child. It is not one person or one entity's responsibility to raise the youth of the future. No, everybody got to do their part.
Everybody. And I love that. I always use those 3 T's: time, treasure, and talent. Yo, at some point in your life right now, you got one of the 3. And I think that any of them will be useful and a positive force at Taskforce. So figure out which one you got, and you know, everybody like a check, okay?
Hello.
Hello. And now you got this book, T stands for Truth, Progress Within the Trans Community. Tell us about the book.
So T stands for Truth, In Search of the Queen by Reyna Ortiz. And I published my memoirs November of 2017. You know, think about the lifespan, and it's questionable. But if you really hung out with trans women of color, Black trans women, Indigenous trans women, you know that our life expectancy is like third world country stuff. You know?
That's right.
So I was losing, and I've been trans, or my gender has been fluid since, you know, I was 14, 1994, and I've come across so many beautiful gender variant people who were just as fast as they came was as fast as they were gone. And you know, I was very aware of that, you know, and I found it very troubling, you know. So what happened was, there was a trans woman named Miss Kitty, and she was the grandma of the community. And I would always be like, when I met her, she was like my drag grandma. And I would always say, like, gosh, I wish, you know, I can have a camera. We didn't have smartphones back then, you know, but I would always say, gosh, I wish I had a camera to document some of these beautiful stories that you are sharing with me. And it was something in my mind, but I never was proactive about it. And then she passed away. And I just thought to myself, Miss Kitty took all those stories and wisdom with her. And it was such a disservice to our community. And I just said, you know what, I'm not going to make that same mistake. I'm not. You know, I was a sex worker from, you know, 16 to 36. For 20 years, I survived sex work. I survived, you know, systematic attacks on my life as a trans Indigenous woman. And I said, you know what, I'm not going to let this go in vain. I have to tell it, and I have to tell it as truthfully and as brutally and as honest as possible. And that was it. It hit me one night. I always say, I don't know if it was the weed. I don't know what it was.
The spirit.
And I said, you're going to write your memoirs. And I bought a notebook and I went to work. And it took me 3 years to write my memoirs. And the closer I got to it, the more realistic that it's gonna happen. And it did. And I had a beautiful, book release party at the Mexican Museum of Fine Art. I had a lot of support, tons of support, but I'm not gonna that's just one component of Reyna Ortiz. That's when, when she goes away, there's something that she left behind, so I don't always buy my book. That's only one component, and when people find out about it and they read it, it's a masterpiece. It's a masterpiece. I talk about in a way where there's no fluff, there's no no, it's the business. If you ever wanted to learn about a trans sex worker from the mid-90s up, this is a book to learn. And I think it's not just Reyna's story, it's a story that a large portion of Queens could have put together. It's very similar, so it's not just my journey, it is the journey of Black and brown trans women and how we navigated through this society.
Yo, I want the book. How do I get the book?
It's on Amazon. It's called T Stands for Truth, In Search of the Queen by Reyna Ortiz, and it's on Amazon. And if you really want to learn the business of the queens and what we had to get through to get to where we are now, it is about progress, though, because I think a lot of us unknowingly progress, and the idea of progress is what gets us through. Shit is rough. You dream about the betterment of your life, and that becomes like a goal. And so it's about progress. It's not gloom and doom. It's about the sacrifice that we make as gender variant people. We sacrifice so much because we love ourselves enough to do it.
Well, first off, I can't wait to get the book. I can't wait to go and jump on Amazon and support and read all about your memoir. I think that doing sex works for 20 years is like mind-blowing. Not because you did it for 20 years, but the fact you survived it for 20 years, because that is not the story that I hear about a lot. It's not the story that I've seen told. And I mean, you're a survivor on so many different levels. So I want to support. Definitely gonna get the book. I definitely want to tell a whole lot of people to go buy it. I heard an author talk just the other day, just like a lot of people write books, but then they don't tell nobody they got the book. Don't worry, Reyna. I'm here to tell everybody you got this book. So I think it is important for us to tell our stories. And that's the reason I started E3 Radio, is because queer folks of color especially deserve their stories to be told, archived, saved, because people who are coming after us need to know that we were here, that we were survivors, that we were thriving, and everything that happened. And to your point, I mean, I just think it's so important for us to tell our own stories.
There's going to be a time where gender variant people it's just going to be so smooth, but I don't ever want our people to lose focus on why it is so smooth. Why can you now do a lot of things that we weren't able to do? It's because Black and brown and indigenous trans women fought tooth and nail and sacrificed everything, because we knew the progress and we knew it needed to be easier for the next generation of gender variant people, 100%, but I don't ever want us to forget about that.
Never ever forget, especially as we are staring in the face of the biggest onslaught from Republicans ever when it talks about anti-trans, anti-LGBTQ legislation across the country right now. We know that there is so much work to do and so much transphobia and homophobia that needs to be eradicated. And I really truly believe in my heart that only happens when people can actually see the human being behind the stories that are told. So truly, thank you for your work that you're doing, Reyna. I can't wait to have you back, because I want to talk about sex work and what we need to do in this country to talk about sex work in a way and legalizing it. I think it is so incredibly important. Reyna, how can people stay in contact with you, follow you, and follow the work that you're doing?
Reyna Ortiz on Facebook, Reyna of the Shy on Instagram. I love the work and I love community. And if you want to be down with the cause, message me. Let's see how we can build, and continue to build. It takes a village. So message me. Yeah, thank you so much.
Yeah, do that. Message Reyna. That's all I'm saying. Do that. Okay, family? You know what you're tuned in to. This is Wake Up with Anna and Friends, your daily news and music show from a Black queer woman's angle. That's me. Keep it locked right here on E3 Radio, all right? Stay close.